Welcome to today's deep dive. We've got an incredibly dense stack of updates today, right? We're looking at 11 totally different stories.
Yeah, it is a massive stack. We're covering everything from geopolitical missile strikes in the Middle East to some really radical space technology.
Right, and even touching on domestic statehood demands and a pretty historic cricket match at Lord's. So for everyone listening, the mission today is to really synthesize all of this for you.
Exactly. We want to sort of break down those artificial walls between these topics because, a macro level conflict halfway across the world actually does reach your local supply chains and your community.
It really does. So let's just jump right in. We have to start with the most glaring example of this hyperconnectivity, which is the Middle East, specifically the Strait of Hormuz.
Right. The focal point of the current volatility.
Yeah, I always picture this strait as the global economy's most fragile jugular vein, you
Yeah.
know? Like when it's flowing freely, you don't even think about it. But the second it gets restricted, the entire world instantly feels it.
Oh, absolutely. And right now it is being severely squeezed. It's basically a fundamental dispute over reality between the U.S. and Iran.
How so?
Well, Iran has officially declared this incredibly strategic waterway closed to traffic. But meanwhile, U.S. Central Command is insisting it remains open.
Just business as usual, according to them.
Right, exactly. But it's not just diplomatic posturing anymore. It's escalated into active kinetic conflict. The U.S. has launched a third round of strikes in just a week, specifically taking out Iranian missile and naval assets.
Yeah, we're seeing reports of major explosions in Bandar Abbas and on Qishm Island, right? I read an Iranian official even confirmed a telecommunications chief was killed there.
They did, but Iran isn't just pushing back in the strait itself. They're retaliating across the entire Arabian Peninsula.
Wow, really?
Yeah, they've targeted U.S. bases and radar sites in Jordan, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and Oman. They're using ballistic missiles and drones. So the geographical footprint of this standoff is just massive now.
That's terrifying. When we talk about these macro geopolitical chess moves, it all sounds very abstract. State actors moving pieces on a board.
Right, it feels distant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the mechanism of this conflict always trickles down to individuals. How do nations possibly protect their citizens when these giant conflicts boil down into sudden, unpredictable tragedies?
That is the core vulnerability here, especially for a globalized workforce. Look at the commercial vessel GFS Galaxy. It was just sailing off the coast of Oman.
Just a standard route.
Yeah, but Iran claims the ship was traveling on an unapproved route and fired a warning shot. The result was this catastrophic strike that forced the entire crew to abandon ship.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Omani and Indian authorities managed to rescue 10 Indian crew members, but one Indian national still remains missing right now while search operations continue.
You're just doing your job on a commercial vessel, and suddenly you're collateral damage in a standoff between superpowers. It's awful.
It really is. And tragically, that vulnerability of citizens away from home, it isn't just limited to active conflict zones.
No, which brings us to that devastating incident in Vietnam.
Right. Just off the coast of Phu Quoc Island, which is a really popular tourist spot, a speedboat carrying Indian tourists capsized. It was about 400 meters from the shore.
The human cost here is just heartbreaking. 15 Indian citizens lost their lives, right?
Yes. Families from Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and Kerala, their vacations just turned into an absolute nightmare. Eyewitnesses said passengers were trapped inside the overturned vessel.
That is horrific.
It made the rescue incredibly difficult. 17 tourists were rescued by nearby boats before the Navy even arrived. 16 survivors are heading back to India, and one is still hospitalized.
It's just a stark reminder of our sheer physical fragility. Whether it's a sailor caught in a geopolitical crossfire or tourists in a sudden accident, the micro-level impact is always human.
Always.
But pulling the lens back a bit, that volatility we just discussed in the Middle East doesn't just threaten physical safety. It actually forces nations to rewire their basic systems.
Oh, absolutely. A prime example of that rewiring is happening at the Chabahar port in Iran.
Right, because India uses that port a lot, don't they?
They do. It's a crucial corridor for India to route humanitarian aid and food to Afghanistan, completely bypassing land routes. But the escalating conflict has severely disrupted it.
When missiles are flying, shipping insurance premiums skyrocket, right?
Exactly. Vessels reroute and supply chains just grind to a halt, so nations have to adapt diplomatically, which explains this really fascinating development in Delhi recently.
The Taliban visit.
Yeah, a 6-day visit by the Taliban administration's Minister of Agriculture, Abdullah Omari. They held extensive talks with multiple Indian Union ministers about food security and biofortified crops.
But wait, India hasn't formally recognized the Taliban administration, have they?
No, they haven't, but this is the fourth Taliban minister to visit New Delhi in the past year. And India actually functionally upgraded its technical team in Kabul to the level of charge d'affaires.
Wait, for those of us not in the diplomatic corps, what does upgrading to charge d'affaires actually mean if we don't officially recognize their government?
Basically, it means India has placed a functional head of mission in the embassy. They handle day-to-day diplomatic and administrative affairs, just without the formal ceremonial title of an ambassador.
Okay, so it's a pragmatic workaround.
Exactly. It allows them to maintain crucial engagement for humanitarian support without crossing that political line of formal recognition.
Practicality over politics, right? Because you have to secure your own backyard. And that logic applies perfectly to energy security, too, which is causing a huge debate right now on social media about alternative fuels.
Yes, the E20 petrol debate.
India is pushing hard for E20, which is petrol blended with 20% ethanol, right?
Yeah.
Basically to avoid exactly the kind of volatile global oil markets we just talked about.
Right. It reduces reliance on imported crude oil, lowers emissions, and it redirects capital to domestic farmers. But transitioning such a massive infrastructure is rarely seamless.
No. And the friction really erupted publicly when Saurav Joshi, the vlogger, posted that viral video. He claimed E20 petrol drastically damaged his Mercedes GLC 300.
Yeah, he showed his dashboard readings, and his mileage basically fell off a cliff. He went from getting 17 kilometers per liter down to 9 and then to 5 within like 48 hours.
Which is wild. And he was voicing this huge anxiety consumers have, the fear of engine damage and the massive costs of fixing a premium car.
Right, but the response from the manufacturer and the government was really swift. Mercedes-Benz India clarified that all their models sold since 2020 are completely engineered to handle E20.
So they blamed the fuel itself.
They pointed the finger at potential fuel adulteration at local pumps, not the ethanol blend. And Union ministers Nitin Gadkari and Hardeep Singh Puri stepped in too, dismissing the engine damage claims as a false narrative.
But let's look at the underlying science for a second. Gadkari explained that ethanol has a lower calorific value than pure petrol, meaning what? Less explosion per drop.
Precisely. Because ethanol has slightly less energy density, your engine physically has to burn a little more of it to generate the same amount of power. So older vehicles might see a marginal 3 to 5% drop in fuel economy, but a catastrophic drop from 17 down to 5 kilometers per liter. That points to contaminated fuel, not the chemistry of E20.
Got it. It's a classic case of the individual consumer feeling the immediate friction of a macroeconomic shift. But, if terrestrial fuel is causing this much anxiety, the radical energy tech being tested in space right now is going to blow people's minds.
Oh, the space mirrors.
Yes, the U.S. Federal Communications Commission just approved a test satellite by a company called Reflect Orbital. It's called Arendelle-1.
Yeah, named after the mariner from Tolkien's mythology. The mechanics of what they're attempting are fascinating. It's a deployable, highly specular, thin film reflector operating in a non-geostationary orbit.
Hold on, let's decode that a bit. Specular thin film. So in plain English, we're talking about a giant, ultra-polished piece of high-tech saran wrap orbiting the Earth.
Honestly, that is a very accurate way to visualize it. It's ultra-lightweight and highly reflective, and because it moves across the sky rather than hovering over one fixed point, it has to be motorized and precisely oriented.
Wait, so instead of just engineering a better battery for our solar grids, we're building a literal sun-deflecting space umbrella like a sci-fi supervillain.
I mean, basically. Reflect Orbital argues it could extend the usable hours for terrestrial solar farms by bouncing sunlight to them after dusk, or it could provide illumination for emergency response teams in disaster zones at night.
Okay, that sounds useful, but people are naturally pushing back on this.
Right.
The idea of commercial companies controlling artificial sunlight from orbit feels incredibly invasive.
It raises profound ethical and environmental questions. Astronomers are deeply concerned about light pollution interfering with ground-based telescopes, not to mention disrupting nocturnal ecosystems.
Wow.
The FCC found the test satellite compliant, but it is sparking a massive debate about who actually owns the night sky.
That is wild. But okay, from radical tech in space, let's look at how massive institutions down on Earth are handling technological adaptation. TCS, Tata Consultancy Services, is undergoing a major organizational restructuring.
Right. They're launching a new unit called Autonomous Business Operations and creating a dedicated U.S. West Coast business group.
Targeting the tech companies there.
Exactly. But the real insight is their methodology. They are aiming to completely reimagine client workflows around AI-led operating models.
So this isn't just, buying ChatGPT subscriptions for their employees.
Not at all. It's a shift from AI being a tool that employees use to AI being the manager that assigns and orchestrates the workflows.
That is a huge shift.
It fundamentally changes enterprise operations. The AI handles the bulk of the processing, and human employees just handle the complex exceptions.
Okay, but we have tech companies building AI that can run autonomous business operations for Fortune 500s, right? But then a major institution couldn't even enforce the rule of wearing pocketless pants in a cash counting room.
The Ayodhya Ram temple theft. Yes, the contrast is incredibly jarring.
It really is. The Special Investigation Team, the SIT, just uncovered how this massive institution suffered a total systemic collapse due to basic human error.
The SIT report is staggering. They uncovered a systemic collapse comprising 9 major procedural and physical security failures that enabled large-scale embezzlement.
Let's look at how these systems actually broke down, because this wasn't some high-tech heist.
No, not at all.
First, there was no frisking of personnel entering or exiting the cash counting room. Second, they had a strict rule requiring staff to wear pocketless uniforms, which is standard for cash handling.
But the SIT found that the pocketless uniform mandate was completely ignored. Staff were allowed to bring personal belongings into the room, but the most catastrophic failure was the accounting mechanism itself.
What happened there?
Cash from different donation boxes was just dumped together and mixed before the counting even began.
Which totally destroys the audit trail. I mean, if you mix box A and box B together before counting, you can never prove if someone skimmed cash from box A during transit.
Exactly the problem. There was no denomination-wise inventory kept. Audits were essentially rendered useless because the baseline data was compromised the moment the boxes were opened.
Unbelievable.
And to compound the issue, the biometric attendance system failed or was poorly implemented. So they didn't even have a reliable digital record of who was physically in the room during the thefts.
It is the ultimate lesson in systemic fragility. You can have all the high-tech biometric scanners in the world, but if the human element bypasses checking someone's pockets, the entire system collapses.
Exactly.
And when basic systems fail at a temple, you lose cash. But when systemic promises fail at a state level, you lose democratic trust. Which is exactly the argument Omar Abdullah is making right now in Jammu and Kashmir.
Right. Chief Minister Omar Abdullah is sharply escalating his attacks on the center over the delay in restoring J&K's statehood. He's announced a massive national conference protest at Jantar Mantar in Delhi for July 20th.
And his primary argument is about accountability, right?
Yes. He is accusing the BJP of constantly shifting the goalposts on where protests are even acceptable. First, they were told the local assembly wouldn't work. Then, protesting within J&K wouldn't help.
And now the suggestion is that protesting in Delhi is futile. Omar Abdullah's frustration sounds exactly like a batter who keeps being told the boundary ropes have been moved back while the ball is already in the air.
That's a perfect way to put it. He even sarcastically asked if he needs to go to the White House to secure statehood. He's pointing back to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's earlier assurance at Katra, insisting that a promise made by the Prime Minister has to be honored.
We're seeing a demand for a different kind of systemic overhaul down in Tamil Nadu as well.
Yeah.
K. Annamalai, who recently stepped away from the BJP, is building a massive new youth-driven movement called We the Leaders.
And the sheer scale of the momentum he is claiming is staggering. Over 19 lakh members enrolled in just 38 days.
Wait, 19 lakh in 38 days?
Yeah, and he's targeting 50 lakh members with the goal of formally establishing a political party by 2031. What makes this notable is the demographic focus.
It's mostly youth, right?
Yes, Annamalai states that 54% of these new members are below 39 years old. It's a generational shift strategy anchoring itself heavily on anti-drug initiatives.
He's framing this as a social transformation, prioritizing ethical politics and Tamil identity rather than just a traditional power grab. And he's taking direct aim at the current ruling TVK-led government.
Specifically critiquing their financial mechanics. He claims they are borrowing nearly 80,000 crore rupees annually, projecting massive debt burdens for the state's future.
It is a fascinating study in grassroots momentum. When citizens feel current systems aren't serving them, they organize outside of them. We've talked a lot today about systemic failures and shifting goalposts, but sometimes execution is just flawless.
Oh, sometimes the human element delivers an absolute masterclass.
And for that, we have to look at the Indian women's cricket team at the Lord's Test. Day 3 was an absolute display of dominance against England.
The discipline started with Yastika Bhatia. She's had a really turbulent UK tour, battling injuries and a rough first innings. And then, on the very first ball of the day, Lauren Bell clips her off stump.
But the bails didn't fall. It is the ultimate stroke of luck, and instead of freezing up, she capitalized on it beautifully. She started stepping outside her crease to negate the swing, confidently pulling short balls and completely neutralizing Sophie Ecclestone's spin.
She raced to a redemption century right after lunch. And following that, Richard Garsh came in and just broke the spirit of the English bowlers, smashing 33 runs in just 4 overs.
India eventually declared, setting England a massive target of 457. But the real story, the absolute masterclass, was the bowling from Krunti Gode and Sayali Satkar.
They were generating over 1 degree of sea movement, which is exceptional on that pitch. God bowled Tammy Bermont for a golden duck with an incredible inducker, and Satkar trapped Maya Bhutia LBW with a brutal nitbacker.
Okay, translate that for the casual fan. An inducker.
It's a delivery bowled by a pace bowler that aggressively swings or seams back into the batter late in its trajectory. It gives the batter almost no time to adjust.
Got it.
But the mechanism behind their dominance wasn't just the swing, it was their consistency. They were hitting good and hard lengths nearly 89% of the time.
Metronomic. That is the only word for it.
Exactly. When a bowler hits that specific length consistently, it forces the batter into a split-second hesitation. Do I play forward or back? That hesitation is what causes wickets to fall.
They just relentlessly dismantle the top order. England is 4 down, and India is just 4 wickets away from a historic, rare, third test win on English soil. It is just pure, perfectly executed willpower.
It serves as the perfect counterpoint to the systemic breakdowns we discussed earlier. When the mechanics are dialed in and the human execution is flawless, the results are undeniable.
So we started this deep dive with the mission to kind of blow up the neat little boxes we use to categorize the news. We've seen how a macro-level conflict in the Strait of Hormuz dictates global supply chains, chokes the Chabahar port, and forces sudden agricultural diplomacy with the Taliban.
We've explored how a desire for energy independence pushes a nation toward alternative fuels like E20, fundamentally altering the chemistry in our car engines.
Right.
We looked at technology stretching our limits, from TCS deploying AI as a manager for global workflows, to Reflect Orbital putting a literal mirror in space.
Traditional home security only alerts you after a break-in, and that's too late. Simply Safe is changing that.
Stop. This is Simply Safe. Police are on the way.
We don't just alert, we stop crime before it starts. Simply Safe, plan starting around $1 a day. Save 50% on your new system with professional monitoring at simplysafe.com/Spotify or with promo code Spotify.
Outdoor deterrence requires a Simply Safe Active Guard outdoor protection plan starting at $49.99 a month. Visit simplysafe.com/licenses for alarm license information. Tennessee 2012.
And at the center of all these sprawling systems, we've seen the deeply, stubbornly human core, the devastating vulnerability of tourists in Vietnam, and a sailor off the coast of Oman.
The stark failure of basic human oversight in accounting room.
The passionate demands for democratic accountability from J&K to Tamil Nadu, and the sheer brilliance of fast bowlers dominating at Lord's.
It leaves us with a pretty profound contradiction, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, we are entering an era where we can literally reflect the sun from space and use AI to run global businesses. Yet our greatest vulnerabilities and triumphs remain deeply, stubbornly human.
A sailor caught in a geopolitical crossfire, the lack of basic oversight in accounting room, or the willpower of a bowler hitting the perfect length.
So here's the thought I want to leave you with today, something for you to mull over. As our technology scales up and our world becomes infinitely more connected, does human error become more dangerous or just more obvious?
That's a great question.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the narratives around you, keep looking for those connections, and remember that nothing ever truly stays in its box.